Hey everyone, well welcome to Your Enneagram Coach, the podcast. That's right, I am Jeff McCord, not the beloved and renowned Beth McCord, the Enneagram Coach. But hey, joining me today in this conversation about subtypes is our Director of Coaching, Adam Breckenridge. Hey amigo, how's it going?
Hey Jeff, I'm excited to be here with you and hang out with our listeners. And to those of you tuning in, our mission is to help you see yourselves with astonishing clarity so you can break free from self-condemnation, fear, and shame by knowing and experiencing the unconditional love, forgiveness, and freedom in Christ. And, Jeff, I want to remind our listeners, if you love this content, turn on the automatic downloads, like and subscribe. What is it that my kids say? Smash that subscribe button. That's what they say.
That was a very awkward smash.
But you should subscribe to our YouTube channel if you love this content. Also share this with someone who would enjoy or benefit from this content. But yeah, Jeff, it's great to be here with you today.
So we're recording this a little before some things have changed, but this will be the first podcast that we do where Beth is actually on sabbatical. And so you're going to be, you guys are going to be listening to McCord and the Jackal, leading you all through these podcasts and through all this Enneagram content. So hopefully you guys will stay around. We do know what we're talking about. Sometimes we don't look like it, but I promise you, we really do.
They don't know the McCord and the Jackal backstory, but the McCord was both of us have done our parts work, internal family systems parts work. McCord is a part of you, right?
Yeah, and I would describe him as my seven wing.
That's right.
In recovery world, it's the inner teenager. It's the funny, spontaneous, provocative part of my, as we've come to, I don't know if people know about it or not, but one time in a podcast, I used your term of my sexiness, but I said
That's
sexiness, right. And came out very awkward. That was El McCord.
That was El McCord. Yeah, and so in the Enneagram internal profile, when we think about our wings and our paths as parts of us, my Enneagram 7 wing, that part of my heart is the jester. Called it the jester for years, but you accidentally in a team meeting, a YEC team meeting one time, referred to that part of me as the jackal, and it stuck. So we are stuck. Our duo is now right. El McCord and the Jackal.
Yeah, El McCord came about. So part of it, I mean, you can hear kind of the play on the word because I am of Mexican origin, but I was adopted into a very white Scottish family. But as a pastor, I would sometimes be Mr. Provocative and be the life of the party. And so the young men in our church community would call me El McCord, or I'd say crazy things while preaching, and they'd say, "That'll tweet." So instead of an amen, you'd hear from the audience, "That'll tweet."
Love that.
But hey, Adam and I are here because we want to help talk about subtypes and why subtypes, this as a category of the Enneagram, is so important. So we're going to spend some time over this episode and the next 2 episodes talking about what are the subtypes, why they're important, what the relevancy is to understanding it as it relates to the Enneagram. The great thing about this topic of subtypes is that actually it answers a lot of questions that we have about the Enneagram because it makes things more specific. So why is it important to even talk about it? Well, first of all, it explains why there can be so much of a difference between people of the same Enneagram type. Here at YEC, Beth has coined the phrase types are like Sherwin-Williams paint colors. You go in looking for a blue and there's 1,000 blues and you can get to blue from every other color on the color wheel, right? And so it helps us to explain the particulars of an Enneagram type. So, this idea of putting people into a box and stereotyping, this actually speaks to why that's actually not the case, in that two Enneagram types can look radically different. I think, secondly, subtypes focus on something called instincts. Adam's going to explain what instincts are, but instincts are the reason why your personality style, your relational style, comes online. So instincts are actually more primitive, or happened first before your type and all of its strategies and all of its patterns, before all of that comes online. So another reason why it's important is that this idea of subtypes actually provides some additional clarity as to why we do think and feel. And once we identify what our instinctual subtypes are, we're going to define that, but we're able to do a lot, each of the following. Number one, we can name what our primary motivator is, so why we are activated, or the popular term is triggered. I don't want to use that too broadly because it's not a trauma response, but it's sort of the instigator, the energy that gets everything going. Number two, we begin to address the other instincts that we fail to acknowledge. So there are other parts of us, there's other ways of seeing and interpreting the world that we actually might be blind to. And then thirdly, we can identify patterns in our thinking and behaving. So what are the things that I get fixated on whenever, particularly as a 6? What are the particular things that I get anxious about versus other 6s, right? And then lastly, here's where it really gets super helpful, is that as I'm beginning to name these things happening inside of me, I can begin to see it in the lives of others. So knowing that Beth is a 1-to-1 subtype of a 9 changes how I think about Beth's 9ness and how it shows up in our marriage, how it shows up in parenting, how it shows up in leadership and leading a business together. Adam's a 6, and so you would think there's going to be a lot of similarities between Adam and I, and we have a very dear friendship and very connected very quickly, but we're very different people. And so we're going to be able to, we understand more why and where that comes from. So why don't we begin with defining what instincts and subtypes are? So Adam, why don't you take it from here and help clarify for everyone what these two terms mean?
Sure thing. Yeah. So subtypes are based on, as you said, Jeff, 3 different human instincts. And these are basic human instincts for survival. You use that term, they're primitive. And so the first instinct is self-preservation. This is, how do I keep myself alive? So someone with who leans toward a self-preservation instinct is going to walk into a room and stereotypically say, where's the exit? Or they're thinking, do we have enough food? Or are there too many people in this room? Or are we breaking the fire code? I mean, they're thinking about, am I safe? Right?
It's funny. Our daughter is always asking, what are we going to eat? And it's so funny. Like, she's never been without a meal. But for some reason, that comes online for her.
Yes.
I notice at times whenever my anxiety shows up around money and economy and business and all those different things. So there's an instinct that comes out of it. Now, coupled with our stories, like, don't forget there's multiple layers to this. But, if you come from, we all come from having some kind of relationship to money and these basic needs that we have. And so but for those that are self-pres, it comes online, and then that's when the strategies of your type come online.
That's right. And that instinct is really just helping us to take care of our safety, health, well-being, and just make sure that we have all the resources that we need to sustain life. So again, the self-preservation instinct is, how do I keep myself alive? The second instinct is the social instinct. And this is, I need my people to survive. Those with the social instinct have more of a herd mentality. So they're going to walk into a room and say, where are my people? Where's my tribe in this room? And they're going to gravitate toward their people. So that social instinct helps us to be aware of other people, both in intimate situations and in a group, and how our actions and attitudes affect those around us. So again, to put it, just to reduce it, not to be too reductionistic, but if you're going to reduce it, the self-preservation instinct is, um, I'm kind of thinking about myself. I'm like, not necessarily in an unhealthy way, but sometimes. But I'm worried about keeping myself alive. The social instinct is, how am I impacting the group? What's best for the group? And so that's the social instinct. The third instinct is what we call the one-to-one, or some call it the sexual instinct. And so those with the one-to-one instinct are going to walk into a room and say, who's the most interesting person here? Or who do I feel the strongest connection with? And the one-to-one instinct helps us to have an intense drive for intimacy and for this constant awareness of the chemistry between ourselves and others. Those with the one-to-one instinct are going to notice, like, not with everybody, it's not like the social where they're thinking about the larger group, but they're going to notice a chemistry and sort of an intensity between, themselves and a select one or two or three, a select group of people, usually just a small handful or maybe one person. And they're really energized by deep one-on-one relationships. So you were talking about Beth being a 1-to-1 9. So I would imagine that most of her intense drive for deep connection is aimed at you. I'm sure you feel that.
When you think of the characteristics of a 9 in their relational style, it predominantly is sort of fixed or attuned to me. So accommodating, it's where's Jeff at on where we're at right now? What's he feeling? What's he thinking right now?
Yeah.
So she's very attuned to that over all other relationships. Now if she's with another person, she's going to focus on that person, but it's a very focused attention versus like what might be a social 9 where they're trying to blend in with the group.
That's right.
They're much more mindful of what the culture, the tone, the experience of the group that they're in, versus the 1-to-1. And the other thing too, I mean, the thing about Beth and I in our marriage, I mean, I'll be honest with you, we really do have a great marriage, and it is, it's like I sometimes in my counseling will talk about an EKG. A lot of marriages are looking for the steady Eddie line, but in order to have a good EKG, it's got to go up and down. And so Beth and I have all of those dynamics, and we stay alive to one another emotionally because we experience all of those. But we're both 1-to-1. And so there is a level of intensity that we bring towards one another and checking in with one another that, to be honest with you, at times looks a little like enmeshment. Some might call it enmeshment. I don't call it enmeshment. I call it closeness. Maybe anxious attachment, some might say.
That's right. That's right. We call it us.
Oh, yes. So I am certainly a 1-to-1, but I do notice certainly these things stack, or we access them in different ways. So I'm not even sure at times if it's stacking or if it's just accessing, but self-pres is the next one. I try to solve life's problems while I'm sleeping at night. Like, I don't know if this ever happens for you, Adam, but I just find myself thinking about money and future, like half asleep, and I'm thinking like I'm making progress on this stuff. Like it's crazy how this anxiety shows up sideways. And now the one social does show up for me, but oftentimes I respond to that inclination or that instinct with provocativeness. So that's where I test loyalties. So I'm not a 6 who wants to play by the rules to find safety, security, confidence with a group of people. But El McCord comes online and he starts testing, how are you going to accept me? And where I can say provocative things or do provocative things. So all three show up, but they show up in different settings. And the one-to-one certainly shows up more than others. What about you?
We are so similar. Well, you bring up a good point. First, I just want to say we do use all three of these. So I'm glad you brought that up, because sometimes people are like, well, which one of these do I use? And the answer is yes. You use all three of these. Typically, one of the instincts is more dominant, and it highly influences our personality type. The second instinct we use less often, and the third one is we most of the time we consider it's repressed. Sometimes it's like a blind spot. And so, but we do use all three. And so you ask, what about me? It's interesting. I don't know if I think it's possible for your instincts to flip flop and stuff. You've heard people use different theories of, like, first half of life, you may notice that this wing is more dominant. In the second half of life, you may notice this wing. I think I noticed that with my instincts. I think I'm a 6 like you, and I think early on in life, I was much more of a 1-to-1 6. I dealt with my fear. We'll talk about a 6's subtypes in our next episode, but I dealt with my fear by pressing into it, by trying to get bigger than the fear. And it sometimes manifested like bravado, but more than bravado, it manifested like, I'm going to climb this really tall structure because I'm scared. So I'm going to do something dangerous like car surf, which kids, I do not recommend. But it
you
came
said
out
that
in
publicly. You have 3 daughters, and now
do.
they know that their dad car surfed.
I did car surf, but
Beth
I was
doesn't let me talk about my childhood.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I probably need to be a little more careful. So especially with my youngest, because she's a clone of me. So I'm that. Talk about having some fear as a 6. Yeah. Oh yeah. So I think now this stage in my life, Jeff, honestly, I think I notice more of the self-preservation instinct. It's more of like, do we have the financial resources we need? Things are getting more expensive. I have kids. We're looking at college. They're going to be driving cars soon. I'm thinking about, like, do we have what we need? Do I have what I need? Sometimes there's a scarcity mindset. It's really about that self-preservation instinct of survival. And I think probably 1-to-1 would be my second, and I think social may stack as my third. It's interesting that you say rule breaker, because that's what my wife, anybody that knows me well, has always said. Adam, there's two contradictory things about Adam. Adam does not want to get into trouble, but yes. Adam does not like to play by the rules.
Adam, this is really interesting.
Those two things don't work well together.
They don't. And maybe we should just spend this particular episode and expand this over 4 episodes, because one of the things that Adam and I have experience in is coaching around emotions. There's an excellent volume out there that if you've never read it, you should read it, because it's approachable, practical way of how to think through emotions. And so when I think about each of these instincts, I'll be honest with you, the topic of shame quickly comes up for me. Because one, there's a level of shame that I have about how my 6ness shows up in my 1-to-1 relationship with Beth. And that's happened in all my romantic relationships, of memories of shame when that desire or instinct comes online. I'm scared of it. I'm ashamed of it. And because I've done some things related to that instinct that I'm very deeply ashamed of and have memories of, that now kind of inner critic, it's always there in my mind. And I think secondly is the social stuff. I have been socially inappropriate, and shame comes online. But I come into, whether it be a business meeting. Matter of fact, I was doing some internal work on naming various parts, and there were 3 kind of avatars in my mind that my inner critic uses to compare me to. And it was all based around shame. I'm not like them. That's social instinct. It's group stuff. Am I like my neighbors? Am I like other entrepreneurs? Am I like other
Yeah.
pastors? And I've got
Oh
an
yeah.
image. And I've created heroes, but that social instinct comes online. Even the self-preservation stuff, I never feel like I'm enough.
Oh sure.
So I'm curious,
Yeah.
Adam. I mean, when you think about tying now emotions to instincts, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah. Well, I think the shame connection's absolutely there for me. And yeah, it shows up the same way. Self-preservation is a thought of, am I enough? You know, um, can I provide? Can I be enough? Can I pull this off? Am I going to be able to pull this off? Am I going to be able to get my kids grown and married off and sent off without, scarring them too deeply or failing them too badly? I mean, it's just this
Oh,
big.
hey, Adam, just to let you know, like, yeah, I promise you, you will. Having two 20-something-year-olds now, yeah, yes, all of that's true,
That's
and
right.
it'll be okay.
That's right. That's right. I try to tell my kids something that a mentor said to me years ago is that I try this tactic with them, and I'll be honest, it's somewhat self protection for me. I'm trying to give them a gift. I'm also trying to protect myself, just to be totally honest. But I'll say to them regularly, one of these days you're going to end up on somebody's couch or on a Zoom call with somebody, a therapist, a coach, a pastor, a friend, somebody, and you're going to talk about the ways that I failed you or hurt you as a dad. And I just want you to know that when that day comes, you are not dishonoring me if you're telling the truth.
Dude, I thought you were going to
Um,
land a joke, but I have told my kids the exact same thing.
yeah, I probably should land a joke just to lighten the mood.
Dang,
But
Adam, you went deep there. I mean, I was talking about shame broadly, not specifically.
I'm gonna yeah. Be careful what you ask for. So, but yeah, the shame piece is there. The emotion of fear is there, and sometimes I notice the emotion of loneliness. I mean, sometimes, anxiety is very isolating, and so sometimes I carry these burdens alone. Sometimes when my social instinct kicks in, I can feel lonely in the group, lonely with my group or with my tribe. It just that can be there for me, depending on my acting out or depending on how I'm showing up. Sometimes the behaviors can be isolating. So
Oh, I love that because, and this is, man, I feel like we're doing an episode for sixes, but when I get provocative, I'm fearful of loneliness.
oh yeah, which is the
But
six is
then,
really core fear of abandonment.
and then once I see the reactions, I've literally created the loneliness
Hmm. Oh yeah, self
because
sabotage.
I've pushed people away. It's purely self-sabotage.
Oh yeah,
So I hope our listeners can understand the dynamic of why these instincts are so important. These are just what it means to be human.
hmm
And yet we
hmm
can experience so much shame, fear, loneliness around being human.
oh
When
yeah,
this is just what it means to be made in the image of God and to live in relationship with other people and to live in relationship with His creation. And
yeah,
we have these emotions that come alongside our sense of humanity,
yeah,
which can lead us towards one another and towards
yeah.
God,
Yep,
or they can lead us away. These
yep. That's
instincts,
right.
actually, these experiences, shame, fear, loneliness, can actually move us to places. I mean, why don't you comment just a little bit? So let's talk about loneliness. Loneliness is neither good nor bad, but it
Just is.
certainly is a movement. It's energy that moves us. So, okay, you walk into a room and you're feeling, okay, are people going to like me? And you're wanting to maybe get a little provocative. Maybe the gesture is going to come out and start to have a little bit of fun, and you're going to overcome your loneliness. How can loneliness be a helpful thing?
Well, loneliness opens the door to our need for intimacy and connection, and so one of the things that you referenced, Voice of the Heart earlier, as a great resource on emotions. One of the things that he talks about in that book is that emotions just open the door to our needs. So loneliness opens the door to the need for connection, and if I'm willing to walk through that door, So here's the thing about all emotions, but let's just take loneliness. I can choose to try to bypass it. I can choose to try to medicate it. I can turn to a stimulant. I can,
Yeah.
I can,
Allender says fill, numb, or blind.
that's right. I can do any of those strategies, or I can even shame myself for it. What's wrong with you,
Yes.
Adam? Grow up, get over it. But the emotion is a fact about me. Like, it's a fact that I feel lonely, and so it's a part of reality. And you can't dodge reality. You can't escape reality. You can try. So the emotion is there, and it's designed to take me somewhere. And if I don't let it take me where it's trying to take me, then it's gonna become impaired loneliness, and it's gonna take me into a place where I don't want to go. The emotion is going to
Yep.
carry me to a place I don't want to go. So
So there's
if I'm
so much ambivalence to these instincts.
oh my gosh, yeah.
I,
And
I
if I,
I have ambivalence towards being a 1-to-1 6,
yeah,
towards being a social 6,
yeah.
towards being a self-pres 6.
Uh-huh.
Matter of fact,
Yeah.
it probably is some of the things that feeling of kind of the pit in your stomach when you find your type. Some of that
Uh-huh.
is related to, like, I have an instinctual drive that I can't control that puts me in situations where I experience shame, loneliness, and fear.
Yeah.
And we try to
Here's the
avoid
way,
it.
and here's the way I try to think about it. Our brains are designed, if you want to just boil it all down, our brains are designed to do two fundamental things. Our brains are just constantly scanning and looking for to help us protect and connect. So I'm their brain's just looking to connect and protect, and so these instincts are how we're going about trying to do that. And why it's so important to be aware of these instincts is, there's no such thing as transformation apart from awareness. So having an awareness of your instincts and how they're showing up, and how they're this is what we're about to talk about next, how they're coming together with your Enneagram type to form your subtype. Having that awareness means, okay, you have a huge leg up toward uh, allowing these instincts to take you into a healthier place and become a healthier self. And they're still going to help you connect and protect, but in a healthy way. So now protection becomes healthy boundaries as opposed to, defense mechanisms. And the connections, these instincts can help you make and build and form healthy connections, whether that's, self-pres, whether that's social, or whether that's a more intense type of connection with a one-to-one.
It's interesting, Adam. When and us talking through this, when I think about my provocativeness, I create what I fear. But whenever I'm aware of going into a room and I'm fearing connecting, that becomes the opportunity for me now to practice self-leadership. And these parts of me that want to become provocative or want to become fun and grab attention actually move me towards trying to create the kind of relationships that I actually want with the people who are in the room.
Yeah.
And that I don't need relationship with everybody, but I want to connect with someone because I know that they want to connect with me as well.
That's right. Yeah.
And so the
That's
same
right.
loneliness, the same shame actually moves me towards people, but it's under the leadership of the truer self, the better part of me versus the less mature part of me that's more driven by anxiety and fear.
Yep.
Well, why don't you
Yep.
talk a bit how this connects with the idea of subtypes then?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So everybody has the three instincts. When your instinct meets your Enneagram type, and particularly like the core weakness or the vice or passion of your type, that gives you your subtype. Um, so you have 9 Enneagram types. Each type uses all three instincts. So that means each Enneagram type has 3 subtypes. There are 3 different versions of each of the 9 types. So if you're doing your math, I think I can math 9 times 3. That would mean there are 27 total instinctual subtypes within the Enneagram. And Beatrice Chestnut has done some tremendous work on this, just to tip our hats to her and her work. But 27 total instinctual subtypes. And it's kind of like you said earlier, it's the Sherwin-Williams effect. I mean, just understanding that there are three different versions or three different subtypes of each Enneagram type helps us understand why two people of the same type can be so different. It's almost as if there are three different versions of a
Yeah.
type 1 or three different versions of a type 2. And that's plus when you start adding in the factors of wings and tri-types and all that stuff, it gets even more complex. But this just helps us understand the beauty of the different shades of all 9 types. And so what you and I are going to do in these 3 episodes, Jeff, is we're going to unpack, from mostly a 20,000 foot view, but we're going to unpack the 27 subtypes. Beatrice Chestnut's done some great work on this just to honor her. But this is really, understanding the subtypes is, again, it's like you said earlier, it's the Sherwin-Williams effect. This explains why, thinking about having 27 subtypes, explains why people of the same type can be so different. It's as if they're almost 3 different versions of a type 1, 3 different versions of a type 2. And then when you start to add, wings and tri-types and things like that, and it gets even more complex.
And levels of health.
Yeah.
Super complex.
Right. Yeah. So you can see how this helps people experience each type so differently, and it helps us understand something of the beauty of each type and complexity.
Now, I think this is on a very practical level. In our conversations with people about the Enneagram, why it's so important to practice the value of curiosity. Because there's so many unique differences between types. I mean, saying to people like, you're not a 1. You don't act like a 1. Or for me, I thought I was an 8 for a number of years. I've even had other Enneagram teachers like, are you sure you're not an 8? I'm like, there is so much stinking anxiety under the hood here. Like, I have fooled you with, we'll get into just a moment, the idea of a countertype. But yeah, me fooling you that I'm not anxious and that I look like an 8 is part of the strategy here. And that's what makes me even more of a 6. I think too, the lack of curiosity, a lot of times that's why we have such contempt for our Enneagram type, is because other people have looked at us or perceived us differently than how we experience ourselves. And we're trying to tell people like, this is just how, rather than accepting the data that we're giving people keep pushing back on us like, no, that can't be true. That can't be right. And so they don't really embrace all of who we are. And so we learn not to embrace these parts of us that really drive who we are as people. Adam, why don't you talk a little bit about the idea of countertypes? What exactly is that as a category?
Yeah. So briefly, let's talk about countertypes. I think it's real important to know the countertypes because they're the ones that most often get mistyped. Kind of like you're saying, oh, there's no way you're a 6. And had I known what the Enneagram was had the Enneagram been as popular, when I was, 20, 21 years old, other people would have said, oh, there's no way he's a 6. He's not a 6,
Right.
So here's the idea of countertypes. Of the 27 subtypes, 9 are known as countertypes. So one type from each group of the 3 doesn't match the stereotypical descriptions of that type. One of the 3 subtypes is always going to go against the flow of the main type. And this subtype is known as the countertype. So the 6 is the easiest one for me to talk about is the 1-to-1 6 is the countertype. It's the counterphobic 6, where instead of kind of your classic phobic 6, which appears, if you're drawing a caricature, and I feel like I can make fun of 6s more than I can other types because I am a 6. So the caricature of the 6 is the sweaty, nervous guy who's,
yes,
kind of wringing his hands, and he's sort of just scanning for the exits, and he's afraid of everyone, and he's suspicious, and that's kind of a bottomed out, stereotypical phobic 6. Well, the counterphobic, the 1-to-1 6, which is the counterphobic or countertype, is going to manifest almost like an 8. And sometimes they're mistyped as 8s. They're going to have more bravado. They're going to have a strong presence, more stoic. They're going to be, their thing is the way that they're still motivated by fear, though. That's the thing. Their core Their core desire is still for safety and security. The core message they long to hear is, you are safe. It's just that their survival instinct meets with their type, and the strategies that come out of that is, well, I'm going to do what I need to do to get bigger than my fear. And the best defense is a good offense. And so I'm going to be big and brash, and I'm going to be,
Oh, very risky behavior, car
risky.
surfing, I think you mentioned earlier.
Yes, some, climbing tall structures. Yeah, risky behavior. And what this is it's just an attempt or a strategy to get bigger than the fear, to control the fear. But the thing is, the fear and the core longing and the core, that's all that is still motivating and driving. It's just that it's meeting with the subtype.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's an example of countertypes. What would you add to that?
Well, just to blow people's minds and to challenge the stereotypes. What would a countertype 5 look like? What's an extroverted 5? And everyone's like, no. There can't be an extroverted 5 out there. That they wouldn't be a 5 then. They've got to be something else. No, it's the countertype.
It's the countertype.
Or the type 1 who never criticizes other people.
Yeah.
And because they're so focused on what's happening internal to their own life that they're not even focused on other people.
Yeah.
It looks different. Or
the type 2, that is more of a me first mentality, as opposed to.
Oh yeah, you would think, that's not
and
characteristic. They're all about other people,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I think of the type 7, the me first type 7. That's always kind of the lead adventurer, but the countertype is a 7 that looks a lot like a 2. That, hey, I'm going to bring the cake for everybody to eat, but at the end of the party, I'm going to eat the rest of the cake myself. Like right. They find their joy through the joy of other people.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting because it challenges. I mean, it's kind of a unique way of thinking about Jesus' call to serve, because even whenever people are serving, there is kind of self-interest sometimes in mind that's really driving behind it. And so it's actually a very helpful way of thinking about it. So each of the numbers have a countertype to them where it's sort of like they're responding differently to the same core motivations, which that's all true of all the subtypes. So core motivations are true of all types.
That's right.
And then there's the layer of the subtype or the instinct. So the instinct, the core motivations, and then response in the styles of relating to the world.
It's interesting, Jeff. I have a good friend who is one of the most fascinating cases of countertypes to me is the countertype 4. And I have a good friend who's a countertype 4, and she still has all the darker feelings. She feels comfortable in melancholy, but she's less, again, a stereotypical, type 4 might be a dramatic artist who's wearing their feelings on their sleeves. That's a caricature.
Mm-hmm.
But her emotions are private, and really she, deals with her emotions by putting on a happy face around others. And so she manifests as not moody or sad or melancholy, but typically as bubbly and happy. And she is those things. She is those things, but it's also, she'll be the first to tell you that it's part of the strategy, and it's her instinct showing up with her core motivations of her type and then manifesting in this countertype way. Just fascinating.
It is fascinating. And we're not in the business of stereotyping people. We're in the business of getting curious about people and hearing from people how they experience their type. Now we have these new categories. Maybe if you're new to the Enneagram, or if you, the subtypes are a great category to understand your type, but also for those enthusiasts out there who want to go further. Understanding the instincts really does open up the Enneagram and give us a glimpse into how people operate in very nuanced ways, and can help us to actually connect with one another in ways that we feel more connected. We feel more acceptance. So,
Yeah.
well, Adam, thanks so much. I really appreciate you coming in to help define what the instincts are, and then also talking about subtypes. Super, super helpful. And hopefully you find that helpful about the emotions and our felt experience of these instincts,
That's right.
which is really important because all this stuff is a matrix of how we engage in God's world.
Yeah, that's right, Jeff. And I hope that we hope that you'll all join us for the next few episodes because we're gonna be unpacking, kind of from a 20,000 foot view, all 27 instinctual subtypes, and so this is going to be a lot of fun. And it's going to, as Jeff has shared, create a lot of room for more curiosity and compassion with yourself, with your friends, and with those in your relational world. So remember, it's the Enneagram that reveals your need for Jesus, not your need to work harder. It's the gospel that transforms us. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.